AEW Unrestricted. This is Aubrey Edwards and Tony Schiavone here with one of my favorite absolute things about AEW is working with you. So how are you today, Tony?
I'm doing fine. We have as we're recording this, we have a lot of things coming up. We're doing a lot of Rampages live. Which means we not only have to go out on a Wednesday or for a Wednesday, but we have to go out for a Friday as well. Which there's personally for our schedule, it's a little bit more challenging, but to me it's more rewarding because we get to see each other more than once a week. And,
it's definitely like that's the silver lining of it. I think I looked like I'm home like 5 days this month, so trying to make sure that my husband doesn't want to leave me. But it's great because it's one of those like this. We always put this job over and like working with Tony Khan and working with everyone else, like how absolutely great it is. And I feel like even though Wednesdays are really long days when we have like Elevation and Dynamite and Rampage and we're doing all of that and we're exhausted and we're getting on planes the next day, it's one of those like positive food for the soul type things.
Yeah.
Like I am so happy that I get to work with all these awesome people. And I think that's one of the benefits of this month in particular is just how much more I get to work with everybody and how all of these cool experiences and going to all these cool venues and watching all these stories unfold. Like, it's great. I love it.
Yeah. It is wonderful. It is a challenge, but it's a challenge that we decided we wanted in our life when we decided to get into this business. So there you go. So I do echo and agree with everything you've just said about the challenges that we've had. And, they're good challenges. I'm really proud to be a part of AEW and proud to be able to work with great people like yourself. And, you and I have a great relationship that we developed ever since day one. And it's been tremendous. It really has. So thank you for all of that. And thanks to all of our fans out there who have been so positive about our stuff. I know you can't please everyone. And I know that from being married, that you can't. That you can't please everyone, but that's the nature of being a human and the things we live in. But so we're here to talk about what's going on in AEW from our perspective and how we enjoy working with the people that we work with. And so we just want to thank fans for being with us here on AEW Unrestricted because we've been doing this since the beginning. Back in the beginning,
3 years in.
Right, back in the beginning, we used to Stacy, our producer, used to actually come on the road with us. And now she decided that she doesn't want to have anything to do with us on a one-on-one level. She only talks to us on Zoom now, so I get it. But the pandemic,
I think it works because
it changed things, right?
It did. Yeah. And I think you also just like recording these podcasts in your PJ pants. So really,
yes,
that's
I do.
The real reason.
With my dog.
Yeah. Right. I mean, like we got to have Bug on the podcast, so it all works out great. But yeah, it's like we always kind of reference back to the pandemic and how much of a change it was for AEW and how much of a growth period it was. But we used to do these podcasts in bulk at the venue the day before and trying to organize travel with talent and get them in. And we'd have a bunch and you're just knocking them out. And then eventually it's, we can't leave our houses now. What do we do? Oh, well, let's just do it over Zoom. And now it always feels like a fun thing when we get to do them in person. Like when we do them in person with Tony Khan, we did the one with Jericho recently for our 3-year Dynamite anniversary, and that's always really fun. It kind of just like a throwback almost. It's weird to think that the company's been around long enough that we can have these moments of like throwback.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned anniversary. We just came off of our 3-year anniversary of doing AEW Dynamite. I don't know what we expected when we started this back in October of 2019, but here we are with some great events. And on that, there's a question here that Stacy had wanted to ask us, and she said, share a favorite moment or match from the 3rd anniversary show. Stacy, I and fans, I guess it's a product getting old, but I can't remember anything from that show. I don't know. I just do too much.
No, to be perfectly honest, I couldn't either. She sends the notes last night, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened on that show? I couldn't remember. So I went in through my phone and went through the green flyer where they send us all the graphics to promote the show on Twitter. I'm like, oh, that was that match. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember from that show specifically, I officiated 2 matches. One of them was Hangman versus Roosh. And one of the things that Roosh did back when he was in ROH full time is he'd go over to the cables on the floor from the cameraman when the ref's back was turned. So I found out about this later. Kayfabe. And he'd take those cables and choke a guy. And I remember him just saying okay, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, okay, but just do whatever you want. I'm not getting heat for it. And then as soon as he does it, I hear BJ, who's the coach for the match, in my ear, get off the cables, get off the cables, get off the cables. Truck's yelling at me. And I'm trying to go out to Roosh dude, stop it. And it just looks like I'm doing my normal ref stuff, telling him you got to get off this. But I'm like, oh God, if he unplugs the camera, we're totally screwed. So there's this extra layer of oh, please don't take us off the air. This is a cool spot, but not worth it. Let's get the hell out. So I think Dispenza's getting him a set of cables for himself that he gets to use now, so that we're not taken from Jamie's camera.
Right. I just know we were in Washington D.C. for that, and it's a smaller type arena than we're used to, but it works for us and it looks great on TV. And I just remember I think what I remember more than anything else when you ask me now what you remember about specific shows, I don't necessarily remember what the fans see. I remember just the work we had to do backstage to get the show going. That's what I remember most now, because it's quite a challenge at times. But that's kind of what I remember. So
it's sort of the I've heard this phrase in wrestling a lot, that when you watch a cool match, the only thing people remember is what they felt and the finish. And I think that's a lot of how I feel. It's oh yeah, today was a good day of TV. Couldn't tell you anything that I did, but I just know it was a good day of TV and it felt good and the fans were into it. And, it just, we left with smiles on our faces. And I think it's crazy that people just don't quite understand how much we're traveling. I check a bag at the airport and they ask where my final destination is. And I just have this deer in the headlights look on my face because I don't know where I'm going half the time.
Right.
I just show up at the airport whenever my boarding pass tells me to show up. So,
well, we did have on that anniversary show, we did have, I remember we had MJF wrestling because he doesn't wrestle that much, and he wrestled Wheeler Yuta.
That's right.
I remember that, and I remember Darby Allin and Jay Lethal. I do remember that because both are such great athletes and great performers and great guys to work with. So I do remember that, but I just remember thinking that, oh, it's the 3rd anniversary. Yes. Here we go for year 4. we got something next week. So yeah, it's a busy life. It really is. It's a good life. It's a challenging life. And so sometimes we don't always remember what the fans remember. It's not to say that it's not important. It's just that it's just like anything else, I think. You can't compare what we do to any other type of job or any other type of, but when you ask a person, what did you do at work this week? Sometimes they can't remember what did you do to work last week because it's still work for us. So anyway, so to answer the question, what are your memories from the anniversary show in Washington, D.C.? I remember we were in Washington. I remember I drove up from Atlanta, and I remember I got my tires muddy from parking in that shitty parking lot.
God, that parking lot, man.
Yeah,
God, hearing the production crew talk about that parking lot, the mud pit of that venue.
Yeah.
That's the thing I remember about DC is when because we were in that venue before, and I remember us coming back. People were like, "Have we been in this venue?" And just saying, "Yeah, it's the mud pit." And everyone's like, "Oh, that's one." Okay, I get lost backstage at that venue. I never remember where they put the medical team. They're shoving the commissioner in a closet. There's just. The interview said is at the one spa where everyone's crossing paths. So George is yelling at everyone to be quiet and no one can stay quiet.
Yeah, it's close quarters. Yeah.
It very much is. And
it's a mud pit because of all the construction they got going on around there. And apparently it's going to be pretty soon. It's going to be very, very nice, but they're building a parking deck and they're constructing roads. So anyway, so I got my tires muddy. That's what I remember about our anniversary show.
Yeah. We've had a couple other great shows recently. Particularly, I want to talk about Grand Slam and our return to Queens. Like I absolutely love that venue. It's for one, it's gorgeous. Two, the locker rooms are great. I like that the things we remember is like, oh, the locker rooms are fantastic.
Right.
But like, because it's the tennis stadium, you walk in and each of the locker rooms have the names of all the tennis champions for each year.
Right.
And it's just kind of this moment of history. It's like walking into the United Center with all of the stuff from the Bulls and their history. It's just like, wow, this is insane. And to think like how kind of new this building is in general, but to see all of the things that have happened in the history of another sport as you're there participating in something. And it's a giant building, another one where we end up getting lost all the time. But yeah, we had a huge show. We had 2-hour Dynamite, 2-hour Rampage. My in-laws went, and they are not wrestling fans, so the pyro kind of scared them a little bit. We had Saraya show up, which was incredible. I was not expecting her. I think they hid her in a closet that was labeled like AEW Tech Supply, so everyone knew not to go in there.
That's exactly what they did, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I was like, when do we have a tech supply closet? Oh, okay. Smart. Yeah. Smart. Right. Okay.
Yeah, that was a great night. The Acclaimed became World Tag Team Champions, and
wonderful.
The Acclaimed, they're a great story. I know we've had them on before, but they are a great story because when they first started, it was like, okay, these kids have a lot to learn, but sometimes and they developed and they got better, and of course they're two fine athletes, so that didn't take them that long when you're a great athlete to be able to develop, become a good pro wrestler. But sometimes you stumble on something that works, and the scissoring caught on. It really did. It caught on, and it is the one thing that's helped elevate them from just one of our tag teams to our tag team champions.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that my in-laws were at Grand Slam, and my first thought was, oh no, I'm going to have to explain to them what Scissor Me Daddy means.
Right.
And that's not really a conversation I'm looking forward to having. But I think it was one of those feel-good moments. Like, both those guys are from that area. They have this great record in AEW, so over with the fans, selling a lot of merchandise. People are showing up with cardboard scissors to shows every single week. And like, you can't not notice that. They had an incredible match at All Out with Swerve and Keith Lee. So it was just the culmination of this wonderful thing. And then it leads into National Scissoring Day, which I don't think any of us really knew what to expect with that. But it was incredible. And I love that they've been paired with Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn told me something very early on in my time at AEW. And to quote him directly, he says, if we're not having fun wrestling, then why the fuck do we do it? And I'm like, that's the Acclaimed in general. They're just clearly having fun with it.
Right. Yeah. And just so you can explain to your in-laws, and they explained this on the anniversary show when they announced that they would have National Scissoring Day, if you'll recall. If you explain this to your in-laws, that scissoring is just another form of a handshake.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Finger taints touching.
That's...
Might have
there
to
you
cut
go.
That.
Just another form of a handshake. So, but anyway, it's really cool, and I'm really glad to see both those kids do well, and I'm very glad to see that that Billy Gunn is part of all that, because he is a delight on many levels. He just makes me laugh. I was not here when you guys talked to his sons, and Alex Abrahantes filled in for me, and I appreciate that. But his sons are also on the rise, too, as far as tag teams are concerned.
They are.
I like, and I want you to expand on this a little bit, I like what we consider homegrown talent.
I do.
That became stars under the guise of AEW. It's not that I don't like seeing guys like Moxley and Danielson who have come here from the WWE and do well and help elevate us, which they have done. There's no denying that. But I like the homegrown talent, and I really think that Acclaimed, and not only the Guns, are that as well.
They are. And we should talk more about that on our next segment here on AEW Unrestricted. everybody, this is Tony and Aubrey shooting the shit on AEW Unrestricted. I feel like every week is another exciting week of AEW Dynamite, AEW Rampage, another awesome city we get to visit on the road, and doing these episodes from time to time is always real fun just because our lives are moving so fast. It's nice to sit back and go, oh yeah, remember that cool thing? And one of the things Tony had mentioned in the last segment was talking about the homegrown talent, and particularly the Acclaimed, our new tag champs, and the Gunns, formerly the Gunn Club. And I think for the first 50 or so matches Colton had, I had reffed all of them. Mm-hmm. So it's incredible to see where someone starts and how they grow as a wrestler and also as a person, and the things that they learn, how they come into their characters, seeing the confidence they gain, seeing how they can work with an audience. It's great. And you mentioned, like, we have all the guys coming from other places, Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, Chris Jericho, all these guys. But I think one of the things I love about AEW is just having all of that talent, but there being a understanding that we have to build up the new guys, because those are the future of our show. It's not just the pillars that we've talked about in the past. It's everyone, because there's always something for everyone in wrestling. So I'm a big Gunns fan, even though they're kind of assholes right now, but I'm a big fan of them. Yeah,
I just, I look at Billy sometime and I think, if I put myself in Billy Gunn's place, do I put Austin up for adoption? I think I do.
I would put Colton up for adoption because I feel like Austin has the potential to make more money. Because he's got his blossoming rap career. He's done a reality show.
He's full of shit.
Yeah, I think he can bullshit through life a little bit better.
Okay.
So if I'm Billy, which means I'm already old and I'm looking at dying soon, if I need one kid to pay for my retirement home, I'd bet money on Austin.
All right. So we're having fun at the expense of the Acclaim. Hey, need to say a couple of things. I mentioned Danielson and I mentioned Moxley coming from the WWE, but and obviously Chris Jericho is such a great leader for us.
Yes.
In the locker room in the clubhouse, he's really stepped forward and become a great leader, and we really appreciate what he has done. And I think we probably mentioned this our last time we talked. Getting to work and know Claudio has been a treat. Is he not sincerely one of the nicest human beings that you've ever come across in your life, in any sport, in any walk of life?
He's absolutely great, and one of those guys that has had so much success that he doesn't owe anybody anything.
Right.
But he will do whatever he needs to do to help anybody who needs it. Right. And he's just such a great guy, and having guys like that at AEW is wonderful. And Jay Lethal, I think, is another guy like that. Even though he kind of plays a jerk on TV, he's one of the nicest people. I've seen him give up time in his matches for other people so they could end up having a little bit more time on Dark, which is a wonderful thing because screen time is hard to come by. So if someone's willingly given up a minute or two for someone else, that's huge.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point, which leads me to this. When we put together a television show, and fans know this, but I don't think sometimes they get it. I don't think people get it. And this is, you have a television show that has a definite end to it. And you've got to fit all this stuff into a television show. And you budget times for all these different matches, and sometimes it doesn't work out like that. And then at the end of the show, you got to scramble to fit it in because guess what? 10 o'clock or 9:59, we're off the air.
Yep.
And you got to get it all in. And it's really a challenge sometimes to do it. And you get a sense of accomplishment, I think, when you accomplish that or when you get it done.
I've been in the main event spot a couple times where you're 90 seconds from off the air. You're watching the clock over there. Tony and Andrew were both in your ear telling you you're almost off the air. And there's that slight moment of panic, like, are we going to make it? Are we going to make it? And somehow we always do.
Yeah.
We've got a great group that you can depend on.
And then sometimes things happen like what happened recently with Hangman. It's I mean, it's out there now. It's on social media that he suffered a concussion, and Paul Turner communicates with the back that he's hurt, and Doc Samson comes in and says he's hurt. We have to stop the match because he cannot continue. There's no good news about a concussion, but the good news was it wasn't a neck injury, which I originally thought it was when it first happened. But again, the flip side is now here we have 8 minutes left in the show.
Yeah.
Right. And so now what do we do? And I think we did a good job of on the fly filling that time. So again, it just shows what pros we have.
It goes back to the point of building up that younger talent, that you have someone like Mox who, when suddenly a match ends not in a way that anyone wanted, and you have to fill 8 minutes of airtime, you just get a microphone and do it. And you send out MJF and you throw him on a microphone. And to have faith that those guys are going to fill the time and take us to that 9:59:59, I'm so incredibly proud of everything, of everyone and everything that they did in that spot, because it's just a demonstration of everyone working together. It's a demonstration of trust. It's a demonstration of talent. And I'm really glad to hear that Hangman's doing okay. And he's back at home. I think he said he had a panini yesterday, so sounds like he's back to his old self.
That's good. Yeah. He's a talented kid. He really is. Okay, this is AEW Unrestricted. Tony and Aubrey will continue with more. Hang in there.
This is AEW Unrestricted. Aubrey and Tony shooting the shit, talking about all the awesome stuff that we've been seeing on AEW programming in the last few weeks. A lot of cool stuff. I think the last time we did this episode, we talked about a lot of the backstage changes and promotions for Tony and Sanjay and Pat Buck and hiring Madison and all of these things. And I feel like kind of seeing everything day to day as a talent that shows up at the venue, I've seen a growth in you. And I'm not even in the room putting the show together the way that you are every day. And I know that that's a beast and very, very difficult. And I have a lot of respect for everybody that's doing that. But I see this sort of pride that you walk around with, that I don't know if it's you're proud of the work you're doing, you're proud of the changes that you see. I don't even know if you know that you're seeing the changes, but I feel like there's a sense of calm and a sense of camaraderie backstage that it's grown quite a bit. We had that in Jacksonville during the pandemic era, and I think we're kind of going back to that feeling.
Yeah, we're attempting to do that. When I was put into this position, it's like, well, what do I do to help things? And I was told by a couple of people backstage in the front office that if you see a need, then go do it. And I think my need is, as much as anything else, is just to walk around and check on people and make sure that they're in the right place, and just to have actually hands-on with talent. Sometimes I've got to be pulled back in with Tony and double check on some things in the show. And I just feel that my strengths now are just working with people, and I like that. A person I've had 5 kids, so I know how to deal with kids,
right?
And so I just feel that that's, even though I'm not necessarily told, hey, go out there and talk to these people and see how they're doing, see what's going on, and just check in, and and I give a lot of people a hard time in a joking way, and I think it's good to lighten up the mood. I just feel that some of the things I'm doing now are not part of my job description, but I'm making them part of my job description because no one else is doing it.
I think the last time I looked at my job description, it was the most vague thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I think that's intentional because with the way that we run and how small our office is, given how big the production is, because we've got, over 100 wrestlers, we've got a ton of crew guys backstage. We've only got 60 people in the office. So we're doing whatever needs to get done. It's like, oh, this isn't anyone's job. Cool. It's your job now.
Yeah.
And that's just what you got to do to make sure that the show runs. And I love that, we'll have talent meeting backstage And there's not a lot of people that can stand up in front of everybody the way Tony Schiavone does and say, "Hey, stop being a fucking idiot."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just sitting there like, yeah, no, everyone respects Tony Schiavone. We can literally sit here and listen to him say this all day, and I'd love to hear it every time.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of fun. It really is. It's really exhausting, and working with Tony means sometimes you have to work crazy hours. I don't care. Don't give a shit. No. Work whatever time you want me to work. I'll be there.
When you're dead.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be there for you. And so there's a great sense of accomplishment once Wednesday is over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but just to let you, and I think I talked about this last time, doing this podcast, doing my own personal podcast, and especially now when we tape Rampage on Thursdays or on Wednesdays, and we got to have it out the door and ready to go Friday night, that when I go home, and I go home on the first flight on Thursday, there's a lot of work to be done on Rampage that we worked during the day, doing voice repairs. Excalibur does voice repairs. I do voice repairs. I look at the footage that we've had, and I marked some things that I think were wrong and things need to be changed, and sent it into Nashville on Thursday. So Thursday, even though I'm not at TV, it's a work day for me at home.
Right.
God bless the internet. And
yeah, right.
On that. So, and then of course we do it on Friday as well. So there's a lot of work to be done on my end when I'm not at the arena. But it's just because, once you get wrestling in your blood and you work behind the scenes, it's hard to get it out of your blood. It
really is.
Lois will hear my text ding, and she'll say, "Okay, what's wrong now?"
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What wrestler do you have to contact now? What's wrong? I say, no, it's just busy work. That's all. And it does. This thing, and I've got it on silent here. This thing rings all the time, all week. Yep. I'm on different text chains. And so, yeah, so I'm glad. I'm happy I was put in this position to be able to work with guys and girls. I am.
I have a text chain, probably the one that I'm most active on. We've got a bunch of people who are running AEW Heels now. So it's like me, Leva Bates, Vicky Guerrero, Amanda Huber. And we just have this text thread where we're constantly trying to figure out how can we make this the coolest community in wrestling and make it such a thing that everyone wants to sign up.
Right.
And I love this team, and I don't think they get the credit they deserve. Like being able to go to a meeting, stick to an agenda, get a bunch of shit done, and follow up, and just have that team that you trust to do things. I've worked in a 9-to-5 job for 10 years prior to wrestling, and I don't think I ever got to experience that. Yeah. And this is something unique that wrestling gave me that I never expected.
Right.
And I love it. I think I have like 7 meetings on Mondays. I can't imagine how many you have from the creative and, management side of things. But I know I'm constantly meeting with partners and trying to just get things ready for the week. And yeah, it's a constant thing. There's no such thing as a day off in wrestling. No,
there's not. And that's the way I like it. Because I can tell you this, I can tell you that in my other jobs that I had, when I worked in college football, we would be so busy on Fridays and Saturdays, and the game would be on Saturday. And then I would come home, and then Sunday I would have absolutely nothing to do. And I was so freaking miserable because I had absolutely nothing to do. Well, guess what? I've always got something to do now. There's no days where I don't have anything to do. And even the days where it's light, I can even think of things to do to help out.
There's a thing we talk about back from when I was working in video games full time called post-ship depression, where you work on this game for multiple years. It essentially becomes like your blood and your soul and your baby, and then you send it out into the world and people play it. And then you just kind of have this overwhelming sense of not really sure what's next, because this thing that has been your life is now no longer your thing. And until you find that next thing and build that connection, it's really hard. And I think I literally just now realized in this moment that I don't experience that with wrestling, because we're always moving. I'm home, I'm in these meetings, I follow up with these emails, I do this next thing, I hop on a call with this person. Great. On the plane, 6 a.m. Tuesday, go to the next town. It's just constant boom, 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 boom. And that's a hard life for a lot of people. And a lot of people can't see themselves doing that kind of thing. But I love it because it's just constantly go, go, go.
Yeah. And I do want to add something here that is probably, you may know about this. I'm not so sure. And it's certainly, I really kind of wrestled with even to mention this, but I'm going to. We have just hired a brand new producer to help us backstage. And it's a producer who's had 15 years of network TV experience, really knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And I really wrestled with even wanting him to come to work for us. And it's my son, Matt, who will start as a producer in Jacksonville. And and as this thing airs, it's already happened. Because he had such a good job, but he, just like us, just absolutely loves pro wrestling and wanted to do it. And I went, Matt, are you sure? Because it's freaking crazy back there.
Right. And once you're in it, you can't get out.
You can't get out. And Tony told me, he said, well, I'm not going to have him work under you. I said, good. He said he's going to work with Sanjay. So anyway, I'm very proud of him, and maybe it's we can get him on to talk to us sometimes, because he's got a lot of. And he worked for Fox News in New York City for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So as a producer there. So see, wow. You go from Fox News and news to pro wrestling. It's two completely different things, but it's still TV.
It's still TV.
It's still trying to put on a live show, right?
24/7, one's in front of a crowd. Like, there's so much stuff going on. I had no idea we hired Matt. Congratulations, man.
Yeah. So we'll see how he does. He needs to stay out of my way, dude. I handled him for a number of years. I'm not.
You're done with his bullshit.
I'm not dealing with him now. So anyway, so yeah. Well, one other thing before we go, and I think it's worth mentioning. How's that pretty good chest bump with you and Chris Jericho recently?
Oh, my God.
I saw that and I went, whoa.
Right? Yeah. So it's great because, like, a lot of the things that I really like working with Chris is it's all on the fly, and he kind of plays into the chemistry that we have with each other quite a bit. So, and we'll do this spot frequently enough where he'll get a guy in the walls. Guy works to the ropes, break the hold. I count. He lets go, puts his arms up in the air, acts like he won.
Right.
And I'm sitting there kind of waiting for a cue, just looking frustrated. And he'll say to me, put my arm down. So I'll put his arm down, say, hey, what are you doing? You didn't win. He goes, yeah, I did. He tapped out. No, he grabbed the rope. And a couple times he's like shoved me or whatever, like he's done something or not interacted. But this last match he had with Dalton Castle, he chest bumps me. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying not to immediately laugh because I'm like, I know the camera's on me. Yeah. I don't want to like break character at all. And I just kind of say, what do you want me to do? And he goes, give it back. Right. So I just chest bump back. So it's always great because, like, and then it gets gift and it's sent everywhere and it's all over Twitter. And I'm just like, man, these kind of like you said with the Acclaim, like you don't know what's going to work. It just sort of happens. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the beauties of pro wrestling. You can script so much of it, but those moments that just happen in front of the crowd that are unique and organic and are, it's so great.
Yeah, I agree.
I love working with Chris. I love working with Chris. He's great.
It's great organic moments. It really is. Okay, we want to remind you that next week we'll be back with some more guests on AEW Unrestricted. We have new people to talk to all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Absolutely we do. And that's one of the great things about what we do. We invite you to follow us for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcast. And check out the video episodes on YouTube. You can just search AEW Unrestricted. Right, Aubrey?
Right. Also on YouTube, you can watch Dark on Tuesdays. You can watch Elevation on Mondays. Lots of awesome up-and-coming talent that we've actually had to have on this podcast before. that we've gotten the opportunity to have on this podcast before. Really great people. You can see them grow and become better wrestlers, and eventually they end up on Dynamite on Wednesdays on TBS and Rampage on TNT on Fridays. It's such a wonderful company. I love sitting here. I love talking with you, Tony Schiavone. This is such a wonderful podcast. Tony and Aubrey here, AEW Unrestricted.